Mr. Cappy here. Today I'm going to be going over a few of the posts on my blog. I've got it highlighted to go to the bottom where I made my first post, which was I posted my motto, which is the meaning of life is to enjoy life. And there are the two rules that I discussed in my previous episode. Um, and this is one of the first posts. If people spent more time worrying about helping others do what the other person wants and less time trying to get them to do what they want, a lot more would get done. This is kind of a insight on charity because a lot of people, whenever they try to convince themselves that they're doing something to help somebody, what they're actually doing is controlling that person and trying to get them to live life as the helper wants instead of letting the person being helped actually live life as they want to. And if the person is willing to be helped, then that can be a good thing. But you can't force religion down somebody's throat, and you can't force good living down somebody's throat. And all you end up doing is making things miserable for the person. This one I made a video a couple of months ago. Religion is a construct of man where God is put in a box that can be used as a tool to control other men. I'm not anti-religion. I want to make that perfectly clear. I am not saying that I'm against religion. What I'm against is people that use religion as a tool and have no other motivation other than to get somebody's money or to gain control over somebody. And the person that is preaching from the pulpit one day and in the pub the next, they would be better served. They would better serve people by just getting out of the business. Let's see. And here's another kind of underlying theme of my quotes and stuff. I'm not sure if reincarnation is the reality, but even if it isn't, wouldn't it be nice if people lived as if it were? And from that, the title, Reincarnation, Create a World You Want to Return to. So even if you don't believe in reincarnation, I am personally up in the air about it, but even if you don't believe in reincarnation, live as if you're creating a world for your future self or your future existence. And this is going along the same theme, treat, react, and restrict and live with others in a manner that if they did the same thing or reciprocated, the world would be in a better place. The Bible phrased this as, do unto others as you would have them do unto you. Okay, this is kind of a lengthy one, and I covered it in my little booklet that I went through in my first post. So if you want to pause the video and read the whole thing, go ahead and do that. It may not be clear enough to do that looking at my output, but basically it's my insights on evil and what evil really is, being the absence of good, which isn't a new thought, but some of the insights that I provided might be things that you hadn't thought about before. This next one is one that I boosted, and if you ever get a chance to look at my blog on Facebook, which the title is up here, well, it's not showing up right now. Give me a second. Reincarnation, create a world you want to return to. If you ever get a chance to read some of these arguments of from whenever I was boosting my posts, I had some pretty entertaining back and forth with other people. And on this one, I just kind of explained why I don't believe that the Bible as why I don't believe that the eternity as the Bible describes it is actually accurate. Starting with eternity is boring. Since I was a little child in a Pentecostal home, I've wondered how boring it would be to spend eternity somewhere. And it kind of goes from there. Um, but I think that it would be kind of entertaining to read that if you ever have a chance to. Say no to drugs. This is just a joke. It's not something I created, but just a joke. Say no to drugs. And while we're on that subject, if you're talking to your drugs, you might have already gone too far. That's just a joke. Um, this next thing, the greatest adversary to perfection is reality. And if you can hear it, see it, smell it, taste it, or hear it, well, I made a typo on that. I'm not going to correct it though. If you can see it, hear it, taste it, smell it, it's temporary in its current form. And that goes back to the deal about we're spiritual beings living a temporary physical existence. I believe that anything that is physical is not our reality. It's just the reality of physics. Then a little play on a Bible scripture. There's nothing new under the sun. Just some things have been recycled more recently than others. At their core, people do not change. What changes is reactions and perceptions of themselves and others. So there, that was inspired by the line from or there was a song in the movie Trolls. Frozen. I was watching the movie Frozen, and the trolls were singing a song about it. He's a little bit of a fixer-upper, and one of the lines was "People don't really change," and I started thinking about that, and I'm not the same person exactly, because the way my view of the universe has changed since I was younger. But at my core, I've not really changed. Just the way I react to things has changed because I perceive them different. And a lot of times, somebody who can be your best friend today and a true enemy the next day, it's not that they changed, it's that the way you're seeing them changed. And a lot of times, the way you see somebody change, it's not really as bad as what you're perceiving that that different perception to be. So, it pays to pay attention to what's really going on underneath. I just created a TikTok post about something that recently dawned on me, which is that whenever you have drama or a traumatic experience in your life, different people react to those things in different ways, and a lot of the way that you react to something is how your core belief structure gets changed. Because if you have a view, if somebody's a narcissist and they have a view that nothing bad will ever happen to them, and then all of a sudden they're involved in a car accident and they're found at fault, that can really play mind games with somebody, and they could believe, and their entire belief structure has been dismantled, and they could react a lot differently than somebody who believes that car accidents can happen and that they were just in the wrong place at the wrong time. So that's enough on that subject. Finding fault with your eyes is easier but less instructive than finding it with a mirror. And this kind of goes along that same deal. Um, a lot of times when you see fault in somebody, it's because they're doing exactly what you would do, and you're suddenly realizing that it's not really appropriate. And sometimes it can lead to change by looking at what other people are doing as a mirror to what you're doing and the way you perceive something. Whenever somebody does something that you know is okay, but you find fault in it, maybe that tells you something about yourself too. Most people are not, I'm sorry, most people are content not knowing until they take it to heart that there is something to know. This was kind of inspired whenever I read about a factory that was built in a third world country, and they were having problems. I think it was a Sears Roebuck and company. So, maybe not. I know that Sears had a role to play in it, and that they were this company was finding it very difficult to find employees to work at this factory because everybody was content with what they had, and they had no motivation to earn any money, so why would they want to go to work and spend all day doing that? And one day they introduced a Sears catalog to this third world country, and all of a sudden people saw what was out there, and all of a sudden, instead of being content with what they had, they wanted more, and the way to get more was to go to work. And so people started working at this factory so that they could order from this catalog, and there was no other reason to work except that they wanted to order from that catalog. And it transitioned into what we would call a first world economy because people were no longer content with what they had, and they wanted more. This is a quote that I found from somewhere else. Anything that is purple like this is something that I believe to be an original thought. If I'm ever disproven, I will go back and edit it and give credit to wherever it came from. If it's something from long past history, then I may not go to that extreme, but this, I clearly got it from somebody else. Jean La Fontaine. A man usually finds his destiny on the road he takes to avoid it. And I think I heard that on a talk radio program, but I don't remember what the program was. Something I heard on Criminal Minds. Focus on controlling what you can, and the rest will fall in place. That's just something that I thought was wise. A Japanese proverb says, greater than 1,000 days of study is one day with a great teacher. There was another one of my Keithisms, I call them, that were inspired from that. Not from this, but something I've been saying for a long time. A lot of people say that experience is the best teacher. I say experience is the only teacher. You either learn from your experiences, the experiences of others, or experiences that you create in your mind. So that's something to think about. Is it worth it to lose the joy of life in order to live longer? On the I'm having to go with the low bit rate on the stream because I'm using wireless internet, and a higher stream rate isn't supported by my system. But the date of this is April 20th, 2019. And a lot of you may not remember that about the timing, but it was a little less than a year later that things started coming to a head with the coronavirus. And whenever I started looking back and saw that I had written that almost a year to the day, I think maybe 11 months before the coronavirus, it really hit home to me because my first reaction to the coronavirus whenever I found out about it was that I would much rather catch the coronavirus and end up dying than think that people are or that the economy is being sacrificed in order to have a few people live longer. There was a great experiment that happened by accident whenever the coronavirus first started being a major deal, and it was a cruise ship. And when this cruise ship whenever the passengers were contaminated with the coronavirus, I started doing the math, and according to what I came up with, I estimated that maybe 20% of the population would be susceptible enough to the coronavirus that they would have a notable or a noticeable reaction, and that less than 1% would actually die from the coronavirus. And for the most part, with the variants, the numbers have been skewed a little bit. But whenever you look at each variant as it's been coming out, those numbers have held pretty well to be true. Some people had no impact from one variant, but they would end up having a reaction for another variant. But from what I've seen, those numbers if you take each variant and create it as treat it as a separate virus, those numbers have pretty much came out to be true. But just the idea of sacrificing everybody's lives just so that some could live longer, it kind of takes the joy of life away. And I personally, in the entire time and throughout the entire length of this coronavirus, I have not worn a mask unless I have to. For work I had to, and in different parts of the country they had mandatory mask regulations, but I never changed anything if I didn't have to. I still shake people's hands whenever I greet them, because that human contact just has a special meaning to me. I still visit my family. I asked my parents about how they felt about me visiting, and they had pretty much the same view that I did. And my mom, I think she caught one variant of the coronavirus, and it had very little impact on her. But other than that, I've not had the coronavirus yet, even though I drive a truck. I've been across the country, literally from sea to shining sea since the coronavirus started, and I've not had any sickness from it. Had other problems. I've got diabetes. I've got high blood pressure. So, I'm in a high-risk category, but for some reason, it's never impacted me. Here's the next one. Hurt on Criminal Minds. Scars remind us where we've been, but don't dictate where we're going. And this has, I believe that this can come into play with how your core belief system is impacted from events that happen in your life, and that something that does not tear at your core belief system, I think, is easier to manage than something that does. If everything came easy, what purpose would life hold? There's a good one. That saying that I had towards the beginning, eternity is boring. This comes back to that. The reason that we have this temporary physical existence is so that we can actually experience what we can't experience as spiritual beings. I used to hate drama, but now I see it as commercial-free reality TV. I still try not to get involved. I think that's self-explanatory on that one. Let's see. This next one is a little, it's a short. Oh, okay, this is, whenever I was talking, it really annoys me whenever somebody sees something and says something, and then it's called a rat. So I wrote, I'm sitting here watching Blue Bloods on Netflix, and I keep hearing people being called rats, snitches, and sometimes informants or CIs, criminal informants. Thing is, the term seems to be interchangeable with the same person being called different names. Well, I want to throw my opinion in the mix so that anyone reading this has something to think about. Then my definitions. A rat. Someone that gets someone else in trouble in order to deflect attention from their own transgressions. And that right there is a distinction that really, really needs to be paid attention to. A rat is not somebody that tells about something that happened. It's somebody who uses somebody else's transgression as a way of deflecting attention from their own. Snitch, someone that tells on someone else for no other reason than to get them in trouble, rather than just calling the other person on it and giving them a chance to change. Somebody that I would call a snitch is basically somebody who goes around tattling and telling on people just to bring attention to themselves and make people say, look how good he is. He's going around acting as the police and taking care of. Informant or criminal informant. Someone who reports a major transgression to someone that can do something about it. Simple enough. And then finally, loser. Someone who calls an informant a rat or snitch rather than owning up to what they did. And a little side note, when it comes to family, these definitions get blurry. And that's where you've got to take emotion into account, because at one point I made said, if you can't change the world, at least do what you can to improve your world. And sometimes you have to be more understanding when it comes to family or those directly around you than you would in the general public. But, that's kind of a blurry area. When you think someone is wrong, simply telling them that they're wrong does not help. That was kind of inspired because I got tired of people, whenever I was boosting my posts, people would tell me that I was wrong and be really harsh and say harsh things to me. And I would just ignore completely what they were saying, because all they were doing was saying, you're wrong. Okay, why? I don't care if I'm right today as much as I care about whether I'm right tomorrow and for eternity. If you find something wrong with anything that I say and can tell me why I'm wrong, I want to hear it. If you're just going to say, you're wrong, don't. Just tell me why, and I might change the way I believe. How do you know you'll love someone for better or for worse until you've seen them at their worst? Basically, don't get married to somebody until you have seen them in a number of situations. If the only way you've ever seen them is on the date and in the best of circumstances, you don't know them. Try to get the person outside of their comfort zone, see how they react. Find out if they're going to insult the waiter. That's a big one for me. Is how you treat people that are in a lower position than you, because them being in a lower position is not a permanent place. And everybody should be treated with human dignity and respect. Even the worst among us, there's a certain level of respect, unless they forfeit it. Next one. Throughout history, everyone who has literally changed the world either didn't intend to do it or did it badly. Work on your world first. And this goes to the thing about At one, Greg Boyington, he's a World War II fighter pilot. He made a comment, you show me a hero and I'll show you a bum. A lot of times, people that rise to the occasion are not the political leaders or the people that have been raised in the best of circumstances. It's the people who see something and take care of it. And a lot of that comes from learning from living in the school of hard knocks. I'm going to take a little break for a second. Um, okay, if you're watching this in the future, at this point I still have 0 viewers. That's what I was checking on, was to find out if I needed to um, respond to any comments, because I've only got 2 screens right now. That whenever I do this at home, in the future I'm going to have 4 screens, and so I can keep the chat. I can keep the chat up, and I can keep the streaming service, and I can keep whatever I'm talking about up all at the same time. But I can't do that right at this point. Anyways, broad statements often hit the target, but seldom hit the bullseye. This is pretty much something about platitudes, because whenever you hear somebody that says something like life goes on, yeah, you hit the target, but how are you going to make my life go on? If whenever somebody's going through a traumatic experience. And a lot of times, how does life go on? You have to kind of go to the root of their distress, because it probably goes back to either something that's raw, or if it's been a while, then something hit their core belief system, and that belief structure needs to be built back up. The best leaders were not the ones who were most appreciated, but the ones who were most missed. That goes back to leaders like George Washington, because George Washington, at the time, he was appreciated, but as he became president, he kind of wore his welcome thin. But in retrospect, whenever he was gone, he was appreciated again, and that's a mark of a great leader. True love. This is not purple, so it's not something I came up with. True love is not giving someone everything they want, but helping them appreciate everything they have. That is a broad statement, so it hits the target, but not necessarily the bullseye in everything. I think it's true on the base. There's a lot more to love than what this covers, though. Oh, this is one of my favorite. Compromise means nobody got what they wanted. Love is not about compromise. It's about sacrifice. And that could never be more true. I'm personally divorced. A lot of my marriage, I was married for 18 years, I believe. Maybe close to 20 years. I don't remember the dates exactly in my mind, but anyways, my ex-wife was very would give in to me on a lot of issues, but the things that were most important to me, we had a lot of arguments about. And this was very relevant in my marriage that didn't last. Love is not about compromise; it's about sacrifice. Let's see. Oh, this next one is a poem. It's a poem that I wrote back in the 90s. And I'm going to read it out loud just so that if you've gotten this far, you might want to know a little bit about my writing. It goes, "Here lies John Q. Citizen, just right as right can be. He knew he had the right of way when the semi he did see. He came up to the four-way and brought it to a stop, and to the right a semi. This semi it would not. This semi could not stop. Its horn was a-blowin'. John knew he had to ride away, so he said, "I'm goin'." Little did old Johnny know, on that fateful day, the truck came down a hill too fast, and its brakes did fade. Quite clear this was the trucker's fault. It doesn't happen oft, but when John Q. met this truck, you know it wasn't soft. So here lies John Q. Citizen, just right as right can be. John Q. is right, yes, dead right, as dead can be. Uh, I do a lot of writing and thinking about road safety. You'll see comments all over the place if you continue reading my blog, reading my writings and watch my videos. Anyone can use flowery speech to make another one look like an idiot. What's difficult is seeing the truth for what it is. I'm going to admit it. I enjoy listening to Howard Stern. I'm not going to say that I'm a big fan, and I'm not going to say that I like everything that he does, because a lot of what he does is just kind of childish and moronic. And there's one thing that he does that really gets to me whenever I listen to it, but it's like drama. It's like commercial-free reality TV, because he doesn't have commercials on most of his, or he has very few commercials on his show. But it is so easy to use the right combination of words to make somebody, and I mean anybody, look like an idiot. But I don't think that if I ever became known, I do not believe I could be interviewed by Howard Stern, because he tends to interrupt people too much whenever they're trying to answer questions. He changes questions, and the level of ADD that I go through, I don't think I could carry on a coherent conversation with Howard Stern. But you know, there are so many characters on the show that win arguments, even though they have absolutely no argument to offer, and even though the only thing they can do is shout the other person down. And you know, I've been guilty of doing it as a joke with my kids every once in a while, where I'll say, "Come on, answer the question." They'll start talking. I said, "Well, come on, answer." You know, and that's a very common tactic with his staff. But I'm not going to go any farther on that. Just remember, it's easy to make somebody look like an idiot, but it's the true measure of your communication is whenever you can actually listen to what the person is saying and make it a dialogue, and not just walking all over somebody. Let's see. Oh, this is something I made up, but I'm not sure why I used that background instead of purple. I think it's because it was kind of meant as a joke. But it's with some people, it's wise to watch for the steel teeth in the middle of their offer for help. And that goes back to the thing about controlling somebody by offering them help. And I really, really do not like it when people do that, because that's basically predatory helping. Let's see. Ducky on NCIS said it best: "Our job isn't to judge, but to understand." And that's very true with a lot of situations. The way you see others is a reflection of who you really are. And I went into that earlier and went farther, so I don't think I need to redo that right now. The problem with a good warning system is that when disaster is averted, everyone thinks it was a false alarm. I think that is pretty much self-explanatory. How do you know that it was a good. How do you know that it was a false alarm if the disaster was averted because of the alarm? That's that's uh, I don't know how else to explain that. Anyways, if the truth offends you or hurts your feelings, you may have what's called intellectual dishonesty or mean friends. My definition of intellectual dishonesty is when somebody can look at the truth, stare it in the eye, and call it a lie. Because if you know for a fact that somebody is right and you still look at them in the eye and say that they are wrong, you are using intellectual dishonesty. And a lot of times it's being done as a power grab. Let's see. This next one is another of my writings. Sorry, I'm going through this cold. It's been a couple of years since I've seen this. Oh, okay. This is about um, forgiving somebody when they spoke in anger. Because a lot of times, whenever somebody is angry, what they say is not really what they feel. It's what they have on their mind at the moment. And when they look back at it in retrospect, they realize that what they said was wrong. And it's important not to let a good friendship that something you've known for years, somebody you've known for years, don't let a single instance determine how you feel about somebody forever. This is one that I think is really good. A diagnosis of a behavioral issue is not a blank check. It's a warning that your perception is influenced by outside forces. I came up with this one whenever I was a bus driver. I used to drive a school bus, and I had a junior high student that was diagnosed with ADHD, and one day he misbehaved and he used the ADHD diagnosis as the excuse for why he misbehaved. And I told him, don't think that that's a blank check. You know that you're prone to misbehave. So whenever you realize that you're misbehaving, stop yourself. And since you've already admitted that you have ADHD, tell the person, I'm sorry, I wasn't thinking clearly, and I apologize. Don't use that as just an excuse for being mean to people and being disruptive. Okay. This is something I don't remember if I wrote it or if I think I did. I have negative people in my life. I don't need to be reminded to be positive. I have haters in my life. I don't need to be reminded to show love. I have mean people in my life. I don't need to be reminded to show kindness. I have bitter people in my life. I don't need to be reminded to be content. I have these people in my life because God wanted me to see the effects of these people and encourage me not to be that way. I wrote that back whenever I was still an active church attender, and I do believe in God, and I just don't believe I don't believe that the Bible is the Word of God, because the Bible tells us that God wrote His Word on the heart of man. So how can the Bible be the Word of God whenever the Bible says that it's not the Word of God, that it's written on our heart? Anyways, there's a lot more to that than just what I said. America's real axis of evil is predatory financiers, entitled lawyers, and power-hungry politicians. That is pretty well self-explanatory. That should be a purple background because I came up with that, and that was based on the deal that George Bush said a number of years. George Bush 43 said a number of years ago about the axis of evil being Iraq, Iran, and North Korea. And I started thinking about that, and I said, no, the three major forces against us are right here. Financiers, bankers, lawyers, judges, anybody in a legal system or in positions of persuasion, and politicians. Okay. Oh, this is one that I really like, but it's really long and it's starting to get late. I have to get up early tomorrow to take a long run. So, it's basically, I start off by saying, go to hell. Many people don't realize this about me, but I spend about 90% of my idle time and much of the time I should be doing something more productive, thinking about life, death, and what life is all about. And at the very bottom, I give a description of what I believe hell would actually consist of if it did exist. And I'm gonna read at least that part. As you read this, just imagine that you feel like your eyes are closed. It's not because you feel your eyelids, but because you can't see anything. As you try to open your eyes, you realize that you don't have any eyes. You want to raise your arm to physically open them, but you realize you can't feel your arm either because you don't have one. As you try to thrash back and forth, you can't feel your body. You want to yell for help, but you can't scream. The more you try to do anything, the more desperate you get. You're afraid you'll hyperventilate, but you can't feel your lungs. Are you even breathing? You long for something to tell you what's going on, but there is nothing. Absolutely nothing. You want to look around and see what's going on, but there's nothing. You want to scream, but there's nothing. You cry out, "Oh my God, what's going on?" And then you realize that there was no sound, just the screaming torment of your imagined voice. You feel a burning worse than 1,000,000 degrees and wish that you could feel your flesh even for one second, even if it was scourged. Now imagine that's how you feel for eternity. Just absolutely nothing. Again, I don't believe that that hell exists because there's a literal, as a spiritual being, once you die, how would you be affected at all by a lake of fire, except by the loneliness because you wouldn't feel a temperature, and you wouldn't be able to sense anything. But having a reality without any feeling sensation, that would be hell in and of itself. When you make bad decisions and nobody bails you out, you have not been abandoned. You are sleeping in the bed that you made. I really can't stand it whenever somebody does something dumb. I warned them that they were doing something dumb, and then they try to lay a guilt trip on me for not bailing them out. Enough said on that issue. It's kind of a lighthearted way to put it. Life would be easy if it weren't so blooming hard. That really shouldn't be purple because everybody thinks that every once in a while. Hatred is love that's been crapped on. Oh, that is so true. Hatred and love are the same emotion, but they're being seen through different eyes. And this goes back to what I've been saying about when somebody's belief system uh, has been destroyed. Because the more somebody loves somebody else, the more they will hate them when that belief system has been destroyed. Hatred is love that's been crapped on. One of my favorites. Great, greatness has never emerged from peaceful waters. No explanation needed. My template for helping people: feed the mind, strengthen the body, and heal the spirit. Healing the spirit could also be what I describe as helping somebody rebuild their belief system. And I wrote this back in 2019, and I believe that rebuilding the support system is a better way to put that. But heal the spirit is more descriptive. Oh, nothing in life is guaranteed to have a negative impact. Oh, okay, I like this one. Nothing in life is guaranteed to have a negative impact to you, not even death. Everything has a potential for good if you accept it and react to it in a positive way. Life is 10% what happens to you, 90% how you react to what happens to you. Often, your best friend is your worst enemy seen on the negative instead of letting the picture change. And seen on the negative is a reference to film, not literally seeing negative. Cranial Photoshop. The unfortunate result when one possesses both a photographic memory and a vivid imagination. Please note the original photograph is seldom retained when said individual also possesses a lousy short-term memory. Cranial Photoshop. Don't look at problems as setbacks. They are the only way you learn. Don't look at those that harm you as your enemies. They are a chance to learn. Don't look at those that are good to you as friends. They may be depriving you of a chance to grow. That is really, really important. Don't look at those that are good to you as friends. They may be depriving you of a chance to grow. That happens a lot with that's a very good explanation of the younger child syndrome or youngest child syndrome. A lot of times, well-meaning older siblings deprive the youngest child of a chance to learn through their own experience. Even slow growth does not happen without the chance to lose as much or more than you've gained. The most priceless freedom in existence is the freedom to do something stupid, because that is when the individual takes the greatest steps forward. The best measure of one's capacity to learn is not their IQ, but their desire to learn. That is a big one. I'm always telling my kids that the smartest person in a room is not always one with the highest IQ, but the one that took the time and effort to go out there and learn. But I'm going to have to. Oh, I like this one. I love hate speech. It allows the idiots to show their true colors. And I think I'm going to end this particular live stream on that note. Because even if you think I'm an idiot, my right to express my idiocy, it bolsters your right to express your truth. So, I'm not out here to convince you. I'm not here to ask you to convince me that I'm wrong. And that being said, I don't know if I'm going to go ahead and end this live stream. And if anybody ever watches this from beginning to end, I appreciate your support and hope to Hope to make streams in the future that will be at least as entertaining, because I think it could have been if if you if you approach it with the right mindset, it could be entertaining. But otherwise, have a good night,